Excellent. All right. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Helen Patton. I'm the CISO at the Ohio State University, home of the National Wrestling Champions. Thank you very much. There is more to OSU than football. I don't know if you knew that. Is anyone here a graduate of OSU? Yeah, see? There's more to OSU than football. How many people have graduated within the last 5 years? There's like one guy in the back going, yeah, I did. Excellent. So today's discussion is a discussion, right? So while I'll facilitate this, I hope that what we get out of this is a bit of a shared learning from everybody in the room. So just sort of a show of hands, who is here because they have open recs, they're trying to hire against, and they're here to hire? Yeah, okay, so everyone who doesn't have a hand up, I presume you're here because you want to be hired. So for those people who are hiring, put your hand up again. So these are the people you need to go talk to. This is what conferences are for, networking, right? Unless, of course, you're one of my employees and you're not allowed to talk to anybody, David. Thank you very much. Okay. Excellent. How many people have tried to hire people or been on the recruiting end and it's been a little fuzzy about what kind of skills the employer is looking for, or what background they're really looking for, or you get a whole candidate slate and nobody seems to have actually read the job description you posted because they seem to just be like throwing their resume at anything with the word security in it? We seen that a little bit? Yeah. All right. So I'm going to just talk in general terms today about what's happening here in Columbus, and my clicker just stopped working. So this is what we're going to cover today, but if you want me to sort of go down a rabbit hole of some other topic, we've got 45 minutes and I've only got 5 slides. So I think we have time to sort of explore what you want to explore. And you can ignore the Security Essentials update in the corner. I didn't put that there. Okay, so someone else will take care of that later. Hopefully I won't get hacked in the meantime or whatever. So here's what we're going to talk about really briefly. What I see in Central Ohio, I'm going to talk about Central Ohio, but is there people who are not from Central Ohio in the room? Yeah, so I think what we see in Central Ohio is probably true everywhere. So when I say Central Ohio, don't feel like I'm excluding you. I think we get that everywhere. What's happening with our talent pipeline, okay? And then really where I want to spend the bulk of our time is having a conversation with you about what kind of skills do we really think security needs, because I don't think as a profession we're very articulate about what security is or what it means. So I would be interested to hear from you. So there will be Q&A and you get to be the A, okay? So what do we know about information security? You can read as well as I can, right? We think there's negative unemployment rates. What do I mean by this? Basically that there are more jobs than there are people with the skills to fill them. Does that sound right? Does it feel right? Sort of? This is what the press is saying. This is what they're saying not only nationally but internationally as well, right? So it's not just us. We've got this perception of a salary bubble, particularly when you work for government, which OSU is sort of pseudo-government. Most of my team feels like everyone's getting paid more for the same job than they are. How many people feel like they're underpaid in their role? Yeah. Well, it's sort of interesting though, right? So all the news would tell you that this is the hottest industry going. You would expect that we're all pulling down about 300K straight out of college, right? But we're sort of not. So I put up here that there's this perception of a salary bubble because I think it's a perception, because what I do see is that companies, they get that security is important and they may be investing in tools, but they're not yet investing in people and the salaries associated with people. Does that feel right? Am I the only one who feels, is there anyone who feels differently? Yeah. So I think there's this perception of a bubble. What that means is you're going to have employees or candidates who are posting for your role, or you're going to be an employee posting for a role, and you think that you're going to get a 20 to 30% salary jump by taking that new role, and then you're disappointed to find that the postings are lower than you think, or your ability to negotiate a new 30% higher job is worse than you might otherwise think, right? And I think for recruiters, they're having trouble trying to work out who exactly the best candidate is for the role, because they've got people who are coming in saying, I can do this job, but you've got to pay me 20% more than what you posted the job for, I'd hate to be a recruiter for security. Is anyone here a recruiter? Yeah, see the guys sitting in the back, they're the recruiters, right? Yeah. Here's a big one in Central Ohio. We cannibalize each other's talent. No. So Bill said it yesterday, right? Who here is in their second or third company in Central Ohio doing a security job right now? Yeah, right? So before I was at OSU, I was at JP Morgan. Here's the way it sort of worked. Someone at JP Morgan would leave and take a job at Nationwide. So JP Morgan would hire from Huntington. Huntington would hire from Cardinal, right? And then Cardinal would pick somebody else up out of and it would start all over again. That sound right? Yeah. And friends follow one another, right? How many people are working in a job where you followed somebody from the old job to the new job? Right. Yeah. We're cannibalizing each other. Why? Why?
The pool is shallow.
The pool is shallow. Who else do you go to? Say that again? The conditions are bad. In what way?
Well, I think it depends on the environment, but a lot of people have moved around because they've gotten fed up with, pick your favorite reason why, politics, funding, workload, whatever. I mean, people get frustrated and they don't have to stay. So
they don't have to stay. Do they? How many people feel like you're stuck in your job? I can say that. My team can ignore the fact my hand's in the air. Well, sometimes you get stuck in a job, right? You've got either you really like the people you're working with or you hate the company, or they've got really great health insurance benefits and you've got a sick spouse or whatever, right? Some people get stuck in their job. But you're right, negative unemployment, you don't have to stay. How many people have been in their job more than 5 years? Some people stay. Some people stay. You go talk to them because obviously there's something going on in their company that makes it a good place to be. Maybe. Or they feel really trapped, either way. Steve, you're not allowed to be trapped. Steve's got a little more than 5 years at OSU. Oh, good. He likes his job. He reports to me. That's good, too.
I do think there's an element where people are afraid to take a risk and go to a new company.
You think so?
Well, I'm new to the area, so I'm one of the talent that actually came in.
Yay! So everyone give this man a round of applause. Thank you.
So I'm trying to recruit from the outside, too, as well. I'm pulling people that I'm familiar with in my career. And I'm throwing out figures that I know are well beyond competitive and more than what they're making. And they're afraid to leave, whether they've got family nearby or whatever. I mean, that's understandable. But some people are just unwilling to take a risk and move to a company.
Security people are risk averse? Really?
Risk aware.
Risk aware, thank you. We're risk aware, yeah. So I put this one, this actually shows up on the next slide as well. I said it twice, I didn't mean to do it. Stagnant, declining talent pool. It feels like not only is the pool not growing, but it's actually getting smaller. People are leaving Central Ohio for something else, particularly if you're in sort of the middle security, starting to bump up into upper management. You've got to leave to find the next gig. Does that feel right? A little bit.
It's a combination. So we're
Combination.
getting heavily recruited to major metropolitan markets.
Yep.
There are plenty of people here that have probably turned down offers for Chicago or New York.
Who's turned down offers for New York, Chicago, big cities?
I'm in Chicago.
Or you're in Chicago. Come to Columbus.
And mid-tier corporations or corporations in a mid-tier city like Columbus are not funding relocation and
relocation. So the statement is mid-sized companies in mid-sized cities are not funding relocation. How many of you have got job offers where it says right at the top, we'll pay for your relocation? 2 or 3? Yeah. OSU doesn't, because everyone assumes that we're the Ohio State University. You want to pay to come and work for me, right? Yeah. So we've got this problem, right? Am I painting the picture worse than it is? Is there someone who feels a little bit more optimistic about the job market than? Because I'm on a glass half empty kind of morning. Does anyone want to counter? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think part of the talent pool issues are self-inflicted because I've seen a a lot of reluctance for local places to do remote workers. Sort of work like that.
Yeah, so the remote working issue, we'll come back to that because I want to know, can security people do their job remotely? I'll come back.
I think that it may be overstating the fact that it's declining. I think it's actually demand is increasing as opposed to the pool's getting smaller.
Okay, so it's not the pool shrinking, demand's growing. Relatively, though, that means?
It does. It has the same effect.
Same effect, right. Go ahead.
I think with the metro markets that were brought up earlier, in my previous role, I mean, I lost all my top guys to the Googles, Twitters, LinkedIn's. They're much more creative in creating that environment. Like, this is a great thing, relocation, specialty programs, and we in the Midwest are much more conservative about that and think, well, we're giving you a paycheck, that should be enough.
Yeah.
We have to be a lot more creative to draw talent back.
Right.
Now, I will tell you the optimism side, I'm a pessimist, but the optimism side is those people are starting to really see that the grass is not that greener on the other side of the fence. Yes, they got 2 times their salary. Now they got to cut that grass. So they're starting to consider coming back to a little bit different standard of living, a little bit different pace.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this one? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, are companies more inclined to hire a new employee as opposed to train their internal staff to take on new roles and challenges?
Good question. How many of you are working for a security group where someone came into the group without umpty-mumpty years of security experience and you trained them up? Who do you work for? Who do you work for? Just throw it out.
Just on that comment, it's a little challenging to do that. We recently reorged our company, and we haven't sure what that is after. And it's a little challenging because some of these folks have been in role for 10, 15 years, whatever, and they're at a pay grade that's far less than what we're bringing in as newer talent. And it's difficult to work with the HR circles to get that jump. You just can't jump 3 pay grade levels when you've been working at a company for 10 years. You almost have to leave to come back.
Sometimes. How many people left for a bigger job and then went back to the original company at a higher salary? Yeah, it's a strategy, right? It's a strategy. You don't like your pay and you know you're in a company that isn't going to give you a 20% jump even though the market's jumped 20%, you leave and then you come back. JP Morgan does it all the time. It's like revolving door.
But I'll counter the argument. I'll counter the argument against not hiring from within to transfer into your department because they know where all the skeletons are. If they are a Unix admin or a Windows admin, they know what's been going on without having to go and dig in. They've lived it for 10 years or so. So I've had really good success with particular Unix admins who know exactly where all the bodies are buried within our company.
For about 9 months and then they're out of the loop, right? So there's a half-life to knowing where the bodies are buried, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
But you also want fresh perspective too as well.
Absolutely.
That's what you get, yeah.
All right. So what's happening in Central Ohio in general? So I did a little bit of research. Apart from online security degrees, does anyone know which college in Central Ohio offers a bachelor's in security? Franklin. Not the Ohio State University. Franklin was the only one I could find that did it. But when you look at that degree, and kudos to Franklin for starting it, we need it, right? But when you look at that degree, of the whole undergraduate degree, 20 hours are done on security. So if you're an employer and this Franklin graduate comes out, and let's for argument's sake say they've got no actual practical experience, they've just got the degree, are you going to say they've got enough security background that you're going to hire them and have them run your network? No, right? So people in the press are like, whoa, we don't have enough talent. The colleges need to be building the talent, right? Colleges are doing what they can, but the colleges aren't offering practical experience along with their conceptual experience, right? So we have to think about that. They're really heavy on theory in general and light on practice. Yeah, go ahead.
So why isn't colleges building out these programs?
Why? So that's probably a conversation for a beer because I'm not a professor, right? But when we talk to our computer science department at OSU, first of all, it takes time. Higher ed works like light degree slower than private sector anyway, right? So, in private sector you go, we're going to make local admin rights a priority. In 6 months, everyone's going to lose their admin rights. We're going to have workarounds in 6 months. Yeah. In higher ed, it's sort of like, well, we're going to form a committee, and then we're going to think about it some, and we're going to let the professors put something in the dispatch complaining about us invading their personal freedom, and 5 years later we might have a local admin rights policy. And the policy, by the way, might say, we will let you have local admin rights. Right? You think I'm kidding, right? So it takes a little while to get a change done to curriculum, because actually they've got a lot of bodies that have to approve it. You can't just show up and say, hey, I want to give you 20 hours of practical experience and I want you to get credit for it. It's got to go to all these places. And the feds, if they're giving you student loans, have to approve that it's really a program, and it's all of that kind of stuff. It takes time. Short answer, it takes time.
I think it's really important to recognize, in theory and practice are the same. In practice, they're not.
Right.
And that's, Marcus Raynham actually, I think, said that. But, one of the problems is that security is an experience-driven field.
Security is an experience-driven field. Do you agree? Yeah?
One of the things that I made the same observation. I think that our industry could be a lot more successful as a whole if we adopted kind of a master-apprentice system.
Right.
I know that BMW in North Carolina, is that where it is? They adopted a similar system for manufacturing automobiles.
Right.
But they've had incredible success building talent from within, getting some of that longevity that we were talking about. Plus, when you're going from those major stepping stones, you have an opportunity to compensate appropriately for that significant achievement.
Right.
I think it's something that we as an industry need to look at and figure out how to do.
Sure. Go ahead.
So there's a startup here in Columbus that 7 companies are participating in called the Collaboratory that is rotating, a 2-year rotation with new college students coming out and rotating them through the 7 companies.
Did everyone hear that? Okay, so there's an organization now, it's a collaboration between 7 companies called the Collaboratory. I'm going to try and rattle off the companies. You tell me if I've forgotten anybody. Battelle, Huntington, Cardinal, Nationwide, L Brands, Ohio Health, and AEP. Have formed a nonprofit called the Collaboratory, and what they're offering is a rotational analyst program for graduate students, so people who already have their bachelor's degree straight out with a computer science background or some sort of data analytics kind of background, and they will rotate those analysts through the Collaboratory over a 2-year period. Who's not in the Collaboratory? Chase is the largest employer in Central Ohio, but you got your own, right? Ohio State is not in the Collaboratory. Who else is not in the Collaboratory? Who's in this room? Nationwide Children's. So we're just SOL, right? Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's an interesting historical example that we all forget about. Who here graduated college 1990 or earlier? Okay, so amongst all those folks, who remembers the boom times of technology project management? It introduces a discipline, right? Who remembers $150 an hour rates in 1995 for technology project managers? No curriculums. Now every large university, every graduate school has got project management degrees and disciplines. And yet we've learned nothing from that experience. Right? We learned nothing from 100,000 more PMPs didn't create 100,000 more project managers, right? It created 100,000 people with PMPs, right? So the lessons that we all experienced 20 years ago in the advent of another discipline are not being learned and reapplied in information security.
No, they're not. And we can't wait for 10 to 15 years for the next batch of security people to come through, right? So the question is, what do employers want out of their stuff? So if you're one of these, I'm searching. This is Helen's take on it, and again, feel free to disagree. That's why we're here. Typically, when I'm hiring somebody who's I would call middle or upper security, I want someone who has years of experience in the discipline I'm hiring for. I don't want someone with 10 years of experience where they've spent 1 year in 10 disciplines. I want 10 years in one discipline, or maybe 10 years covering 2 or 3 disciplines, right? Has anyone experienced anything different? Is there anyone who wants the mile wide, inch deep kind of experience?
I think it depends on the size of your organization.
Sure.
If you've got a shoestring budget, you're going to want more.
You want the generalist. Yeah? Yeah?
I think a lot of companies, they don't have the budgets to hire specialists in every single group. So you're going to get a lot of generalists that have, maybe more than an inch deep, but they're going to have a couple of different areas where they're deeper than others because they sort of specialized on their team in that area.
Sure.
But you're going to get a lot of generalists and people with deeper knowledge in a couple of subsections, but maybe not somebody who has 10 years in one very specific domain because nobody can afford that.
No one can afford it, right?
Well, I would argue that for the first 10 years of your career, you ought to approach that generalist thing until you find the areas that interest you and drive you, because you're going to be looking at a 40-year working career. And then
God, if I have to spend 40 years in security, I'm going to kill myself. But I get the point.
You find your specializations and start to drill down and grow your career in those specific areas.
Sure. So who's here has less than 10 years of experience in security? So sort of in the middle somewhere. Does that ring true, that you're just sort of trying out different areas and seeing what you like and what you don't? Is that about right? Yeah, maybe. My team and I always argue over certifications. How many of you see a job out there that says a CISSP is required or a CISO is required, CISA, CRISC, all of those? Okay, as employers, how many of you actually feel like that's going to be the make or break when you get your candidate? What's going to be the make or break? Experience. Every single time, right? So one thing I would tell you is if you're an employer and you put down CISSP, I love those certifications, by the way. Do not let me think, I'm not going to suggest they're not of value. But when it comes to a job description posted for a new job, if you're an employer and you put that that's required, liar, pants on fire, and you should be ashamed of yourself. But if you're an employee and you don't have that, and you stop that from making you apply for the job, shame on you too, right? If you've got the experience, you should be able to prove that during the hire. Now, we need to talk to our recruiters, because when their little algorithm says, yes, CISSP, exclude resume, we've got a problem, right? So if you're hiring, you've got to get rid of that too. Go ahead.
I would extrapolate that same theory onto 4-year degree. If they have 15 years of security experience, I don't care if they have a college degree.
Yeah. Who wants college degrees out of their security professionals? But you know what? Even in my team, because it's a tough market, we say 4 years or equivalent experience. Even at OSU, believe me. Yeah. I almost didn't get my job because my degree was not from The Ohio State University. That was a negative, right? Yeah. So we have to be careful of paper tigers, right? So if you're on the employee market, don't think because you have a certification it proves anything other than you might know the domain, but it doesn't make you a good security professional. You've got to be prepared to show that, okay? I actually have a typo in this last bullet. Emerging technology experience is the hottest, hardest for employees to get. When I was reading that this morning, I'm thinking it's also the hardest for employers to get. So when I've had some conversations with my peers around what do you want your college grads to know, they're like cloud, mobile, big data. Yeah, how much experience do you have in cloud and mobile and big data? A year, if you're lucky? If you're lucky. So what do we expect as employers? That you're cloud and mobile and big data? Or that you're flexible and you can learn stuff on the fly, right? So don't put cloud and mobile experience in your job descriptions. And if you don't have it, don't let that stop you from applying for the job. Okay? Can you tell I'm on a bit of a bandwagon on that one? So what can we do? Who has successfully attracted mid or senior level talent to Central Ohio? Yeah?
I just want to make a comment on that last slide.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to see what they've done outside of work, because there's so much technology now that you can just download and play at home.
Right.
It's more important to see what initiative they've taken outside of just the regular curriculum.
So when people are interviewing, how do you approach finding out what they do outside of their professional career without bumping into the legal issues of asking them, are they pregnant or something?
network is set up.
How do they set up their home network? Hobbies? What do you do for fun? I go to my basement and I play war games and stuff. Yeah. No one would ever hire me, ever. What do? I knit. Yeah, you got to think about the skills you're looking for, right? But I think what we're trying to get to is, what are those transferable skills? Because I guarantee you the hot topics of today, the hot technologies, are not going to be the hot technologies 5 years from now. I'm dealing with students who are coming in saying, is it okay for me to bring an iPhone into the classroom when I'm taking an exam? Because I could cheat. I'm like, yeah, don't cheat. Doesn't matter whether it's on paper or pen or with an iPhone or your Google Glass, or don't cheat. But how do I stop that as a security person? I don't know. Because, there are books and books, iPhones for dummies, Google Glass for dummies. I've got nothing. All right, who has brought in senior talent outside of Columbus into Columbus? Oh, no hand. One hand in the back? Really? How'd you do it? Oh, you reload someone from one office to another. Well, that's a talent pool for you to draw on. Was it hard? Where were they reloading from? Pennsylvania. Well, it's Pennsylvania. Excellent. Is anyone who's reloaded, anyone from like the East or West Coast, Arizona? Yeah? How'd you do it?
Built a business case about the standard of living, the cost of living index, the benefit of the slower pace, higher growth opportunity in the company.
Yeah.
So, if you're a puller out of Starbucks and said, you know what, how's it feel to be a number? I start getting the head nod. I know I'm starting, and build a case of what your career growth or trajectory will look like in a company, multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical company in Ohio.
And let's not forget, if you hate the company you move for, there's about 500 others in Central Ohio willing to pick you up, right?
Skill sets,
yeah.
months later.
Low risk.
Best decisions.
It's low risk, absolutely. So we've got to sell it, right? I saw an article that said, based on cost of living, the lowest paid CISOs in the country are in Silicon Valley and New York. Don't be a CISO in Silicon Valley in New York. You get paid relatively nothing. Come to Columbus and be a rock star, right? We've got to sell it. And that's not just for CISOs, by the way. That's for all positions. Yes?
I think one of the hardest challenges we have in obtaining the top talent is that, especially on the coast, they think you're a technology hick if you're in technology from Ohio, and it's a career dead end to move here.
Yeah.
We have to be able to sell.
Do you work for JP Morgan?
Sadly, I
yeah. I know that thought.
We have to be able to sell that this can be a career leap for you. And
yeah.
I think that's a challenge, because I think most of us, as we've just talked about hopping from company to company, don't see that we can make a career leap from here to something else.
Absolutely. But if you've got somebody who thinks that anything west of the Hudson is like from the 18th century, it doesn't matter how we sell Columbus. They're not going to move. They're going to stay poor in Manhattan, right? Mazel tov. Good for them. Right? So let's think about where we can pull people from. Pennsylvania is a great state to pull people from. They're really smart. I hate to and forget their football team. But, we can pull in from the tri-state area relatively easily. Why don't we? Even Michigan. I know. Believe me, some of my best sort of technology buddies are from the University of Michigan, actually. They're doing amazing things in security at U of M. Great hiring pool. Bring them to Columbus, because you know what? Their job then doesn't mean that we're going to be pulling the Cardinal guy over to Nationwide and Nationwide girl over to wherever. Right? Bring in U of M people. If you've got it, hold your nose. Bring them in. Okay? But we also have to talk about there is something to be said for it is a low-risk proposition to bring somebody into Columbus, because there are all these jobs and there are all these industries. You can come in and start in retail, and then you can move over to medicine, and then you can go to higher ed. It's a completely transferable skill. And we've got all these companies. It's not like you've got to go to one place like Arkansas and the only big employer in town is Walmart. We've got all of this stuff going on here. So how do we sell that? I don't know. I don't have an answer. Does anyone have an answer to that? You've got to get close to your recruiters. You've got to. And the beginning of your job description shouldn't be, I want 10 years of experience in DLP. It should be, come and work for our great team. We've got great technology. You get to play with stuff. You have work-life balance. Put all of that first, And then put at the bottom, oh, by the way, if you know DLP, that'd be great, but not required. Okay? Think about that. Growing our own. Okay, so we've got to grow our own. What are our options? High school, college. So one of the things that you'll see around in the Twitter sphere at the moment is a thought of, if we're going to say a 4-year degree is optional, and I know this is heresy, this is where I am no longer representing Ohio State. Why don't we pull someone straight out of high school? How is that any different than getting somebody who's mid-career, whose sole computer experience is using Outlook? How many people of you have high school students?
We got some people
Yeah?
in our organization in the Unix administration side who came in from college.
Yeah.
And they're some of the brightest guys.
They're pretty bright out college
they
guys.
don't have a lot of experience yet, but you can just see that they're eager. And
Any girls, or are they all guys?
They're guys.
They're all guys. Ah. Yeah, I know. They're all guys. I know. Don't get me wrong. Like guys, work with lots of them. Like to see more girls. It's a different thing. We're missing half the population if you don't include the women. You wonder why your pool is small? It's because you're only looking for guys. Different soapbox. My daughter's a 15-year-old in high school, and their class is doing Python programming, and their class is involved in capture the flag high school activities, right? If you've got high schoolers in your family, or you've got friends who have high schoolers, they are crying out for us to go and talk to them about what's happening in security. The teachers want to talk about how to protect their students from online bullying and this and that, but it's a really ripe recruiting ground. I've got a high schooler coming in, she's going to spend May with us. Now, don't get me wrong, she's not going to be there and doing all of our incident response and all that kind of stuff, but they can do a lot of work that your teams can't get around to, and in the process they can be learning about what it's like to be in a security team. Don't underestimate high schoolers. Yes?
There was a program that Columbus State offered, and I think they stopped a couple years ago, that was called Women in IT.
Yeah.
I used to actually go there and volunteer.
There's a Columbus women who and Steve Romig over here reports to me, he runs a student capture the flag student organization at OSU. There are students out there, you've got to know how to tap into them. If you don't know and you're interested, look me up on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever and we'll talk, okay? But high schoolers are out there and they really want your help. I guarantee if you went to your local high school and said, I work in security, I'd like to come and talk to your computer science department, you will find someone who will ultimately end up working for you if you're open to the idea, okay? Yeah.
So I'm a key example of a high school student.
You're a high school student?
Well, that graduated.
Oh, that graduated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, I went to vocational school in
Yep.
computer science. I graduated in '95.
Yeah.
And I was an intern at Mead Paper. I ran all of their IT information, and then later I went to college
Yep.
and got my degree.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I have 21 years of IT experience.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great if we had kids come out of college or 4 or 5 years out of high school and to be able to say they've got 4 or 5 years of security experience. It'd be great, right? So don't forget your high schoolers. In college, we're looking at internships. And so here's the plug for the day. I am working on an internship program coming out of Ohio State. So if you don't have an internship program and you want to connect to one, again, look me up. We're looking like in the fall to have an offering that will be available to you, okay? So the question is, what do we want our college grads to have, skill-wise, or our high schoolers, for that matter? Is it more important that they just know general IT? Or do you want them to know security first and then IT? Can they know security without IT? And if security is not really an IT issue, because we keep telling our executives that, right? Do we need IT in their background?
I think so.
Yeah?
I think so. Not to diminish our industry, but it's easier to teach security than IT. That's at least I work with application security. So you're a developer to start with. It's easier to teach you security than the other.
So it's easier to teach security than IT. Do you agree? Let them learn IT wherever, and we'll teach them security second. Yeah? Go ahead.
I'm most interested in people that are very analytical.
Yep.
And like data and are enthusiastic and want to go learn more.
Who has more data than they know what to do with as in a security space? How many of you are looking for data analysts as you're hiring? 1, smart guy. 2. Yeah, actually, OSU, another plug, OSU does have an undergrad in data analytics now, if you're wondering. They started this year. So, I don't know, we'll see. They play with IBM data out in Dublin and Watson and whatever. Yeah, go ahead.
Communication skills are huge too, so I know some of the college programs are putting in mandatory communication, writing programs in their IT department.
I agree with you. What do you expect a college, here's the thing. When we talk as an industry, we go, well, you've got to learn how to communicate. How did you learn that? Can you be told, okay, this is how you write a really nice email, public speaking. Is that going to help you sit in front of a board and do a security presentation? So this is where I get frustrated. Colleges need to be teaching our students how to do security. What do you need? I need communication skills. Like what? Well, I don't know. They just need to be able to talk to people. What kind of communicating do we want what do you do? How did you learn your communication skills?
I think you need to do it hands-on. I think writing is one of the primary means of communication with email and all the other forms of communication we have. Go buy Strunk and White's Guide to Grammar and read it and work with your folks to say, you need to be able to communicate professionally. This is going to give you tools to do it. It's a protocol, just like anything else.
Okay.
You learn TCP/IP, by golly, you can learn grammar.
Can you?
Yeah.
Have you seen how executives write? Holy moly!
You're choosing the wrong example. But you have to frame it the right way. I mean, if you have a highly analytical person who's very much into the protocols and how systems communicate, that's how I frame it.
Yeah.
We have a communication protocol just like these machines do. You need to learn to manipulate it just as effectively as you do with the TCP/IP stack.
How many people, when they're hiring somebody, ask for a written sample of how they write before you accept a hire? 1, 2? Out of this whole team? Everyone goes, communication skills written? Yeah. But people go, well, as long as they can show up and they look clean and they can talk my language, their communication skills are great.
I use cover letter as a big gauge.
You do?
For writing
Cover letters?
Style.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If they either don't provide a cover letter or the cover letter's a piece of crap, a lot of times.
Do you know that they actually wrote it?
No.
No.
That's the gauge when you bring them in.
Ah.
That's how you can tell by the verbal communication skills.
Hang on. 1 sec. Go ahead.
So I'm like 2.5 years out of college.
Yeah.
And I have the unique perspective of getting an IS degree from a business school.
Yeah.
And they made us take speech classes in business writing.
Yeah.
Which was a lot. It was great. So I think don't forget the people that have a little bit of business experience, because the business schools will pump out more polished people than like an engineering college.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So on the communications piece, interestingly enough, I don't know if everybody realizes this about the profession that we're in, but we're on the vanguard of the death knell of technologists that only live in a technology world.
Sure.
This is what information security is now. So what I find really fascinating is when we talk about communications, you talk about who we need to communicate with. One of the exercises that I take people through that I interview with is as an information security professional, they need to be able to describe a complex problem and a solution in no more than 2 PowerPoint slides.
Can you guys do that? Describe a complex security problem and a solution in 2 PowerPoint slides. I can't. Listen, I have verbal diarrhea to begin with. It's actually a great recruiting tool, right?
Yeah, the information
Test it.
Information technology space over time, if we think about it, what have we bred in education and what we've hired? We've bred people that when you ask them what time it is, they tell you how to build a Swiss watch.
Yeah.
Right? We can go down to the nth level of detail, but when you're asked to distill it, our favorite one, give it to me in plain English, which is a business person saying, I do not understand what you're saying. We don't have
Especially when they speak French. Yeah, yes. Absolutely.
That's what we need out of college.
So here's the thing. One of the things that I don't see out of security teams when I talk to my peers is any operational time set aside for developing skills. So we hire somebody in and we assume that 100% of their time is dedicated to the job they're in. And their managers, as a manager of staff, we might assume best case 10% of their time is spent coaching and developing. How many of you have a manager that spends 10% of their time coaching and developing you? Right? So one of the things that I would suggest to you in your own team, or if you've got a manager who manages a whole bunch of people, what are they doing to set aside some of their time to bring in the high schooler or bring in the college student, or for that matter, bring in someone from the communications department from your local company and start teaching them about security stuff? Be prepared to job swap, right? You've got to take the risk that for that time there's going to be a bit of dip in productivity. You've got to allow for that. Yeah?
So I've got one of my SMEs has taken and set aside a block of 2 hours once a week to teach the other team members, whether they're in his particular vertical or not, the skills that he knows.
Right.
And they go. They sit down, they work through problems, they do things, and they learn.
Yeah.
And it just, I look at it as this is great because it's developing my team to be more diverse. And if I lose somebody, I can now drop this other person in place and get them going while we look for somebody else.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, if you've got SMEs within your groups that are willing to take that time, give them that opportunity.
Use your SMEs, right?
More power to you.
Absolutely.
And
you get ISACA CEU credits when you give training, right? So tell all your certified people they need to be training people. We have like 5 minutes left, so I want to just open this up to any question or comments that you have. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
It's difficult to bring people to Columbus from the coast and wondering how much outreach there is to the military, Air Force, Army, those that have really technical branches.
Yep.
Is anyone outreaching to those if they don't meet a college student that have experience?
Is anyone outreaching to, is the question, is anyone outreaching to military and people with a technical background, maybe military based, but not a college experience? Yeah? Yeah, absolutely.
There's a bonus in that, too.
I'm not going to repeat what you just said.
There's a bonus in that, too, and that if they are someone like semi-retired or a National Guard, they get free training that they're required to go get to maintain whatever status they have in the military.
Yeah.
So that's off your budget.
So don't forget your military recruits. Yes?
Something that's worked for us is getting interns not out of IT department, get them that are taking a business management track.
Yep.
Hey, you can get some women sometimes, but there's
sorry.
They've never even thought about an IT or security career. They've never seen it, and if you can get them for 6 weeks in the summer, a lot of them will take an interest.
Cardinal was if you talk to them, is anyone here from Cardinal? So what I'm told, having attended a few of these, is that you've got this great phishing program, but one of the students that was a psychology student, master's level student at OSU, was one of the people who was engaged in writing what the phishing emails would be, leveraging their psychology background, right? So yeah, don't just think computer science, absolutely. Other questions, go ahead.
Expand on the military, I'm giving away some of my trade secrets, by the way, I'm a recruiter. Is FBI, NSA, they got some really great discipline training programs.
They do.
A lot about the protocol. They don't pay them squat. So
yeah.
They work them to death, so it's great. Hey, you know what? Go for them.
The other thing is the FBI, they've got their drug testing is really stringent, so all the college students fail their recruiting. So you can always look for the people, if you don't mind some drug use, you're good to go. Yeah, go ahead.
The respect for security policy needs to come out of the colleges more. The security policy, I think, in corporation is probably more stringent than it is in the university. And so you see people come in and say, what's this firewall block, or the proxy? Why is it blocking everything I'm trying to get to? Right? So there needs to be that mindset.
Yeah,
transition built in.
there does. So here's Helen's third soapbox of the day, coming out of highly regulated into not regulated at all, and we want to share our data with everyone kind of culture. If I can get it to stick at OSU, whatever it is, it will stick way longer. What I found at the bank was we could tell people they had to do stuff, but as soon as we weren't looking, they'd go do something else, right? So yeah, people know. You know what I'm talking about. So there's pros and cons to that, right? And I think as security professionals, we need to be convincing people that what we're doing is the right thing to do, not just because some regulator is saying they have to do it.
But now we're in a culture of we're firing them when they don't do this. So we're losing part of our talent pool because they're coming in, doing stuff they did in college, and it's not tolerable.
Yeah. You got to play by the rules.
Okay.
Yeah.
He pulled out my soapbox. I used to say that we shouldn't have any computer science degrees offered without a required course in computer ethics, but I have changed that in recent years to say that no one graduating with any kind of business degree they have to have a class of computer ethics.
Yeah, so another higher ed story, so not at OSU, but another state, starts with a P. They had an entire master's program, business, that were kicked out of school because they all cheated on their ethics exam. Just saying. Okay, we have, I can't see that far. How many have we got? 0 minutes. We are out of time. So thank you for coming. If you want to see me later, do that, and have fun.